Well, welcome to Happy Trails, which is the Senate Western Caucus podcast. And our special guest today is Senator Deb Fischer, the senior senator from Nebraska. So, welcome, Deb Fischer,
Thank
to
you,
Happy
Cynthia.
Trails.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is perfect. And hello, everyone.
So, there's a lot going on in agriculture, both in policy and in terms of emphasis. So I think today is like Ag Day. And are you on the Ag Committee?
I am.
So
Yeah, I am.
can you give us a sense of what you do on the Ag Committee? And then I want to backtrack a little bit and find out how your life, your background, influenced what you're doing now.
Yeah. You know, the Ag Committee's, it's a great committee. It's usually pretty bipartisan. And when I think of an Ag Committee, I think of the Farm Bill, but that is a very small part of what the Farm Bill is. And I'm sure all of your listeners have a big understanding of that. You know, when we look at a Farm Bill that's maybe $1.5 trillion, $1.3 trillion of that would be a SNAP program. And so we really fight hard. When I say we, I'll be a little partisan here, but I think the Republicans on the committee, we come from ag states where it's a priority, where it's a big part of our economy. And so we fight hard for ag producers and agriculture. And Nebraska is the beef state. So I'm a cattle rancher. And to be able to have the experience of being a rancher, understanding rural communities, to me, that is such an important part of being able to represent my state on the Ag Committee.
So I, too, as you know, am a cattle rancher. So we have that in common. So let's compare notes a little bit about what it was like for you growing up in Nebraska, maybe how the ag operations we're closest associated with may differ, and talk about how diverse agriculture in America really is.
Well, first, I didn't grow up on a ranch. I grew up in Lincoln. My dad was a civil engineer. My mom was a teacher. So I grew up in Lincoln, and at the university, I fell in love with a rancher. And so I ended up on a cattle ranch south of Valentine, Nebraska, which is in the Nebraska Sandhills, really not knowing anything about agriculture. My grandparents had a farm when I was little, so we'd visit there in eastern Nebraska, but really had no connection. But I had a connection to Nebraska because my dad was with the Department of Roads, and he ended his career as the director of Department of Roads. But he worked for the department when I was growing up. So on Sundays we would take inspection tours, and he would drive. We'd take a drive, but we'd go out and look at new bridge projects or new planning for where the interstate highway was going to be going through at the time. So I think through osmosis just developed such a love for the diversity of my state and the small communities in my state, while recognizing the importance of our urban centers too, you know, growing up in Lincoln. But Nebraska's a diverse state. I heard once that there's more difference, Cynthia, between the western part of the state, close to you folks,
Yes.
and Wyoming and Omaha than there is between Omaha and Washington, D.C.
Well, that makes sense to me.
Yes.
You have some hot, humid summers in Lincoln, but you can also grow the kind of crops that are associated with hot, humid weather and higher rainfall. We are in the Plains states, high mountain deserts. Where I was born, Cheyenne, we only get about 12 to 14 inches of rain every year. But it's, oh my gosh, it's great grass country. And people from your neck of the woods, and especially from the southern United States, when they come look at our grass, cannot understand how cattle can put weight on on that sort of dry buffalo grass and other sort of short
Yeah.
prairie grasses that we have.
Do you have harder grass?
It is
there?
harder. And so even though it's not a succulent grass, gosh, it puts weight on, and it's fabulous. Right around Cheyenne is just fabulous country for steers. And so we used to have a cow-calf operation, and as my brother and sisters and I got older and started looking at each other and how hard it is to calve out cows in the middle of winter, we thought, man, we should just transition to a steer operation, which we did, and it is easier. It's also riskier, of course, because you're so dependent on the market when you're buying and selling steers all in the same, 12-month cycle. Tough business, but what a wonderful cultural, just kind of an iconic American way to grow up. And of course, your husband, multi-generational rancher, correct?
Yeah. Our grandchildren now, they are fifth generation on the ranch. And to have that connection with your community and to have that connection to the land. I don't think people fully understand that until you've spent time, and it's a good life. It is a hard life. A lot of people here in Washington, some of our colleagues will say, "Oh, I bet it's so peaceful." When you're back home on the ranch and you're with your family, and I'm going, well, you've obviously never worked cattle together as a family.
Everything goes wrong on Friday when it's just about to get dark.
True.
That's when everything hits the fan.
But it is, as you know, you grew up on the land. It's a good life. And our three sons are all back in the ranching business in one form or another, and they chose to do that, and we're lucky that they did.
So how do you see their future in agriculture in Nebraska?
It's tough right now. Two of our sons are on our home place, and they're running that. One's married, 3 children. They can't find help.
Yes.
And we're a cow-calf. We're a cow-calf, and we're in the middle of calving
much
now.
more labor-intensive.
Yeah. Put up the hay. We've got great, we have big sub-irrigated meadows, so we usually have good hay crops. A lot of drought in Nebraska right now, though, and fires and all that comes with that. But you don't need as much help. My husband will talk about his youth and the big hay crews where they had horses, and slide stackers and putting up hay that way. And when he was little, he'd get in the cage and jump on it to pack it before you had a hydro fork there to pack it in. But it's with the equipment, it's more expensive.
Very much more expensive.
Yeah. So your input costs are higher for the equipment and the diesel and everything that goes with it. And you still, for your own mental well-being, 2 brothers on a place, they were very fortunate that they do get along. But it would be helpful if they could both get away at the same time too, and they haven't been able to do that. So being able to find ranch hands has been tough lately.
Yeah, it is definitely an industry. The cattle business on the land is getting older and older. The average cattle rancher's over 55, and it's getting to the point where the average is closer to 60 now. And that's going to change the way that ag, especially cattle operations, go as we move into the future. I'm so pleased to hear that your family is staying on the ranch, because I'm told, and studies bear this out, that it's not illness or divorce or that tends to move ranches out of the family as much as it is not having the next generation to take it over and work the land. So it's going to be a big cultural change going forward. But Nebraska is so just rich and prolific as agricultural ground, that I can see Nebraska sort of staying the course as America's breadbasket for a long, long time. You're also on the Senate Armed Services Committee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And our states share a concern about the nuclear triad, and especially the land-based nuclear warheads.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your subcommittee, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I chair the Strategic Forces Subcommittee, and so we have jurisdiction over our nuclear arsenal modernization of the triad, missile defense, space as a warfighting domain. So all the things that I believe is our first duty as people in Congress is to provide for the national defense.
And nobody works harder, is on more committees than Deb Fischer, I might add, because you're also on the Rules Committee and
Appropriations, commerce, ag, rules, and ethics.
How did you get on so many committees?
I have great staff, and
but your staff didn't get you on those committees. You got yourself on.
You're a hard worker here, Cynthia. You're known for being a legislator, and I think you're recognized for that. And hopefully, I'm recognized for being a person who wants to get things done to make life better for the people of our state and for this country. And I hope that that's why I've been able to get great committee assignments because of that, and you have as well with commerce. I know your commerce, EPW,
and banking,
Yeah,
they're all busy, but mine are all domestic policy focused, whereas you have a mix of domestic policy and foreign policy, which is a huge portfolio. So the fact that you're so beloved as a legislator in that you just have these working knowledges in so many areas, and they relate to each other. You have to fit them all together, and especially on appropriations, that's where everything kind of converges. And I'm sure having that broad a portfolio allows you to have a unique perspective on appropriations.
I think so. I have only been on appropriations for 3 years now. And I wanted to get on the committee because as we're on authorizing committees, which Armed Services is, Commerce is, EPW, we authorize. We have the hearings. We hear about all sorts of issues. We work on bills. But then we're authorizing for the appropriators to appropriate the money for them, just like happens in every state legislature around the country.
And you were a state senator.
Yes. Yeah. 8 years and just loved public policy making, and reason I wanted to be here in the Senate. But to be able to look at all that, and then also to work with your communities back home for designated spending. I support that. I only work with taxing entities, with the state or cities and counties, our water districts, our fire departments, things like that. When you have a really small community and they need a new wastewater plant, we pay enough high property taxes in the state of Nebraska. Those people, in order to get some of their federal tax dollars back, I really enjoy working with communities like that to bring that tax money back home to help with property tax relief, to help them be able to put in these big which I consider long-term investments in infrastructure, which you deal with all the time on EPW.
Exactly. So you've been on a lot of county farm-to-market roads when you were a little girl with your dad.
Yeah.
And then as a legislator in Nebraska, working on infrastructure, roads and other infrastructure. And now as an appropriator here in Washington, the same. A very strong woman. And there are getting to be more strong women in the U.S. Senate, but certainly if people were naming strong, effective women in the Senate, you'd be at the top of the list.
Well, right here, I'm with one. I'm with one here.
Well, what we have in common is we're policymakers. We're worker
policymakers.
We're worker bees.
Yeah.
And they're people who excel at communications. They're great on TV. And I love seeing our colleagues on Fox News. But you and I are more down in the weeds working on policy, and it takes all. It takes all of us to make this thing work. So I'm just a big admirer of the work you do here, women in agriculture. You're just a model for that. And Deb, thanks for being on Happy Trails.
Thank you, Cynthia. You have just been such a friend to me and such an asset to the Senate in representing your state. It is an honor to serve with you.
Well, thank you so much. So, the senior senator from the great state of Nebraska, Deb Fischer, our guest today on Happy Trails. Join us next time. Thank you.